Hello everybody, welcome to the Not So Glory Glory My Night podcast. It was an ugly day yesterday at Old Trafford. Uh, Manchester United were absolutely no in the first half. Now, on the 9th of December 2023, Nigel, United lost 3-0 to Bournemouth at home, and both of us that day agreed that Ten Hag had to go. And nearly 10 months on, United Ten Hag is still here. United have lost 3-0 at home yet again, with Dominic Solanke scoring again, he did for Bournemouth last December. And somehow the board have come to the conclusion that Ten Hag should stay on another while. I just cannot believe it. He should have been sacked at Christmas. Feeling that he should have been sacked at the end of the season, and we know why he's here because he won the FA Cup. So Nigel, are we now paying for the fact that we won the FA Cup in May?
Absolutely, Kyle. That performance yesterday was absolutely appalling. I Before we went out to watch the match, I watched the preview on MUTV, and there were a family of six had travelled from Cape Town, South Africa, to their first ever match at Old Trafford. And following that, a family of five had come from Argentina to see Martinez. Now, the money they spent, never been there before, either family. They were so excited, and the thought of Tottenham, who play the game the right way, the way I like to see it played. And we, frankly, yesterday, we were humiliated, Kyle, played off the pitch from start to finish. They scored early in the first half and they scored early in the second half. Surely the coach's role is to get the team primed from the very first whistle to get into the game. The complacency is just shocking. There are players out there who are not playing for the manager, but if they're not playing for the manager, they're insulting the crowd, 70,000 plus every week. Here we are back into negative equity again regarding goal difference. We've scored a single goal in three home matches. 3-0 defeats to Liverpool in yesterday. It's mediocrity and it's not good enough. And the board should be doing something about it because the fans are getting very, very frustrated with this.
Yeah, we're into a goal difference of -3 after finishing last season with a goal difference of 0. United have now conceded 3 goals at home for the 8th time in the last 28 home games, which is another abysmal stat. Um, the amount of drubbings we've taken under Ten Hag, I've lost count now. Now, lots of people were saying this is a new low under Ten Hag. I'm not so sure that it is because it's been many, many lows under Erik Ten Hag. I don't know where this one ranks really, but it's certainly another dark day under his tenure. And even though I expressed my frustration already that he hasn't been dismissed today, I do think there's an air of inevitability about it that it probably will come during the international break because, as you know, we've got Porto away, which is our most difficult Europa League group phase match. We've got Villa away, and I fully expect us to be blown away in that game as well because you've got players there that are low on confidence. They don't believe in the manager's methods. There's no cohesion at all. They don't know what they're doing. The the plan changes from game to game. What plan here you say? And I just think a Villa team high in confidence, scoring goals are just and they're going to be well up for it. Anytime Villa are playing Man United at home, they're going to relish it, and they've got the team now to beat us off the pitch. And so I could see that ending 3 or 4-0, and then I think definitely he'll be sacked after that. But we're being made to wait one more week, Nigel. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's the wrong decision. The fear factor at Old Trafford is gone. Any team from 1 to 20 would, excluding us obviously, come to Old Trafford expecting to get a result. You used to be going to Old Trafford trying to keep the score down. Yesterday was the 200th meeting between Spurs and Manchester United at Old Trafford. Now, Kyle, I was reared in the 60s, and I remember watching, apart from Liverpool, the Spurs United games in the 60s with the great Jimmy Greaves on one side and the great Dennis Law on the other side. And they were entertaining games. The stadiums were packed and people enjoyed it. I've heard people say to me in recent days, We had a friend who left, didn't even finish watching the game yesterday. It is so dispiriting because there's no plan. The manager talks about his process. Nobody knows what that is. It's certainly not scoring goals. We couldn't buy a goal. It's just horrible.
Yeah, so let's look at the goals in isolation. So the first goal, and the clip has been reshared online again of Rashford lapping out of a challenge with Van der Ven. Yeah, the centre back for the Dutch centre back for Spurs, Mickey Van der Ven, and then he goes on a marauding run about 50 yards. Nobody challenges him, and he pulls it back for Brennan then to top it in. Brennan Johnson and Diogo Dallo is the one meant to be chasing Johnson. He gives up and just allows Johnsons to top it in, and then he apologizes. He's already apologizing to his teammates before the ball even crosses the line. And he just give up the ghost, rather than sticking tight to his man. He just accepted that Brennan Johnson was going to outrun him. And Dallo had an absolute stinker in the first 45 minutes, but that will not surprise me or you. So many people have tried to claim that Dallo is a good player and most improved player at Manchester United, but both of us have long been critics of this player, and I thought he's had a horrendous start of the season, and he was absolutely abysmal yesterday. So, what's your thoughts, Nigel?
His indiscipline for a first team player is just beyond me. Absolutely. The guy wants to play for himself. He's not a team player. But let's get one fact right. The current coach rates him. He was given a 5-year contract extension back in October. So I've continually said on this podcast that the judgment of the current coach is not at the level required to bring us to the top three in the Premier League. The job is far too big for him, Kyle, and his retention of Dallo could have been withdrawn at half time by any other coach, but he's loyal to bad players, and he has to go, or this will continue.
I laughed at a tweet from a Manchester United season ticket holder yesterday. He goes to away games as well. And he said, if ever you feel stupid, just remember people think Dallo is a good player. And I am glad that someone who goes to every single game is seeing what I'm seeing on TV. And I'm seeing a mediocre footballer, a mediocre fullback who is more interested in getting forward than defending. And when he goes forward, he's mediocre at that as well. He doesn't, like, you're not talking about Trent Alexander Arnold here. He's way off that. So what we've been told by the media is that Trent is the number one target for Real Madrid in 2025, and feeling that they'll go after Dallo. Well, let's hope they don't get Trent. That's all I'm saying. If they put 40, 50 million on the table, I would snap their hands off. Nigel.
Without a doubt, yeah. And he loves all the media stuff. He comes out quite often and does post match interviews because he just thinks he's better than he is. I mean, correct me, but he was actually replaced during the international games recently for Portugal. So he's not the first team player that he thinks he is. And we have talked about him. He's down in the sheet at left back. You could see him at outside right or central midfield. He just doesn't have the discipline to help his teammates out and mark the man that he's supposed to take responsibility for. Doesn't want to know. You see the hand go up more and more the longer he plays in our first team.
Yeah, and of course we made the point that he was dropped during the Euros. He was taken to the cleaners against Georgia, and then he never started another game after that for Portugal. So clearly, Martinez, the Portuguese manager, is clearly seeing what we're seeing as well. It's not the first time I've seen him being dropped for Portugal. Just can't defend and doesn't want to either. And this is why I think he should be moved on at the next available opportunity and replaced. Masarahi came out of the game with some credit yesterday. He's had a really good start to his United career. And as you say, Luke Shaw is available, or when we sign a left back who's a starter, I want to see Mazarahi at right back and Shaw or the new guy left back, and Dallo no longer in the picture. That's when I that's when we'll see progress in that position.
Yeah, that would be a very positive move. Absolutely. You need to get your back four stable. And the left back position at the moment, since the current injury and previous injuries to Shaw, Malacia has been out for a season. The manager's judgment to play Dallo at left back is just not working. And it doesn't matter what pundit says that. I mean, Gary Neville talked about, as we have talked about, recent performances, particularly at home, have been like a pub team playing at Old Trafford. And Gary Neville's right. I agree with him. It's appalling. And they have to start getting a left back sorted out.
So just after half time, we're cut open again, and Kulusevski, who is a very good player, I must admit, scored a wonderful finish. But how he got to that point was disgraceful. The manager brought off Xerxes at halftime for Casemiro. Obviously, what was in his mind was to make United more defensively solid, sacrificing a striker for a defensive midfielder. But yet, it didn't make United any harder to play through, did it, Nigel?
No, that for me that was the wrong call. He's played virtually nothing recently. Casemiro, he's been constantly left on the bench. Ericsson should have come on there simply because he controls the game better and he sprays it about. He's at that level of fitness, having played most of the games early on this season. When he came on later, he certainly made an impact, not from dead balls, which is usually a strong point, but from bringing people into the game. It didn't work. It was a gamble and yet another bad decision by the coach.
Yeah, and then the third goal was from a set piece. It was flicked on. Spurs player won the header, and Dominic Solanke scored a real striker's goal, sliding in and scoring at the back post. And Dallo again was caught napping. Now, I'm not blaming all of yesterday on Dallo, but he was particularly bad. But there's definitely a few poor performances out there, and Bruno Fernandes being another one. Him getting the red card. Now, there's been lots of disputes among United fans over whether it was a red or not. Some people say it was a yellow. I've seen people say it was an orange card, and other people accepting that it was a red. Now he slipped, but then he stuck out a passionate leg and caught Madison uh, high on the leg, just below the knee. There wasn't much force behind it, but he was taking a huge risk by making that challenge. And Kavanagh gave the straight red card, and VAR. It's not a clear and obvious error from the referee, so they weren't going to overturn it. And he refused to leave the pitch for a couple of minutes, which is ill discipline of the captain. So this actually might be a blessing in disguise for him because he has been terrible from the start of the season. The manager refuses to drop him or even give him a rest. Even brought him on against Barnsley, which the Barnsley manager couldn't believe when we were 5-0 up. Uh, so he's going to sit out 3 Premier League games now at least. He obviously will still be available in Europe, but I think this is what he needs. He needs time on the sideline because he's not playing well, and this rest might be a blessing in disguise. So, what's your thoughts, Nigel?
Yeah, he was very poor, very poor. I agreed with a straight red. I wouldn't like any of our attacking players to be brought down like that. It was a wee bit, as you say, uh, nasty, petulant uh, tackle by someone who should know better, a seasoned professional, 30 years of age. Now, let his teammates down, and he's the captain. Very, very poor indeed. Yeah, he needs taken out of the side. It's not the way we expected him to be withdrawn from the first team, but let's see if he comes back and tries harder when he does return.
Yeah, and I couldn't even watch his post match interview because um, the title of the interview said that it was not a red card. James Madison said I shouldn't have been sent off, and I just can't be bothered even watching that excuse. And Ten Hag tried to say that it had a big impact on the game. No, it didn't, because we were atrocious even before the red card. So and actually in the second half of 10 men, we had a 15-minute spell of playing okay without Fernandez. So I do not accept that that is what uh, defined the result. I thought we were going to lose the game anyway. We were playing that badly. So I'm just fed up with the excuses. excuses from the manager. It's different excuses every single week, and I can't watch his interviews, and I couldn't watch Bruno's interview yesterday either. I'm just absolutely fed up. And Brush makes an important point here. If Son Heung-min was playing instead of Timo Werner, it would have been 4 or 5 yesterday, because Werner has a reputation of missing chances, and that's what he did yesterday. He missed a couple of one-on-ones with Onana, and Son would have buried those, and it would have been far, far worse for Ten Hag and United yesterday. It could have been 4 or 5 easily.
Yeah, we did. We were happy, obviously, that Son wasn't fit because we thought it would give us more of a chance. Didn't matter where he played or not. We were so bad. Weren't the pace wasn't there. The attitude was wrong. It was they weren't prepared properly. Bad coaching. It was woeful, absolutely woeful. They Anana made 3 or 4 decent saves. I mean, him and the right back were the only two players I thought got any credit yesterday. It really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I just the saddest thing of all is that it just wasn't really a surprise. And we've seen this type of performance many times since Ferguson retired, really, but particularly under Ten Hag. We've had so many drubbings and so many embarrassments at home, and nothing surprised me at all about yesterday's performance. So I didn't really get that angry about it because I've seen it coming, and I know that he's going to be dismissed sooner or later. So there's no point in getting stressed out about it anymore or getting animated, because um, we're probably just a week away from him being dismissed. Uh, but it was an absolute disgrace, nonetheless. So how much of the blame would you place on the manager, and how much of the blame would you place on the players for our current predicament?
Well, you can look at it in two ways. The manager, it's his team now. Let's forget about previous managers. He's been allocated all this money. I quite often say in this podcast that there are better footballers in other countries in the world. We're playing players that are either attached to Ten Hag by the fact that they played at his previous clubs or connected to previous clubs in Holland. So he has no excuses at all. But those players have lost heart, and there's players not putting any effort in at all, Kyle. It's just so obvious. But the major factor is the manager's judgment of whether a player is good enough for United or he's not. But I detect some arrogance in him now. I mean, you say you don't. I listened to his press conferences before games, and last night he has an arrogance about him in that he thinks that he's got the backing of the board. He says they're not going to sack me. I'm not going to be sacked. We agreed in the summer that we would stick together. He doesn't make any reference to the fact that all these players, and you mentioned season ticket holders, they must be heartbroken paying all that money and travelling to away games. Imagine the money there. And you don't even feel that when you turn up that the team is actually playing for the club. Are they playing for their individual futures? It's just there's no link play. We don't know what the pattern is. It's just not United, and it just can't go on. It's appalling.
Yeah, and he's still dining out on the FA Cup final win several months ago. He doesn't this season. I've seen him a few times where he's been asked a legitimate question, and he just says, "Well, I won the FA Cup in May." You know, but we've barely won a game since, not had a good performance since, really, and yeah, it's not relevant anymore. And it was a great day, but he can't dine out on that forever. And as I said earlier in the show, I think winning the FA Cup has now cost us, because they made a decision to keep him based on that, and obviously the lack of alternatives as they saw it. Obviously, they interviewed Thomas Tuchel, and he wasn't appointed, and they decided to keep Ten Hag, which was a major mistake. He was lucky even to get to May as manager. Never mind now where we now October near enough, and he's still here. It's absolutely amazing to me. But it needs to be pointed out that a lot of these players go on international duty and they're absolutely brilliant for their countries. Yet when they come back to United, they're awful. So clearly there's something wrong with the system that they're being asked to play in, Nigel.
Yeah, well, Kylie's known as a disciplinary guy, and I don't know how does he act like a school teacher in the dressing room, because he isn't getting players motivated. Who once he goes, let's see how well they play when he leaves. The proof of that will be in the pudding. But he just doesn't have the way to put his arm around players and get players to play better. I mean, the players he's signing seem to play worse. I mean, Martinez and Delict yesterday was very, very poor, and the potential in those two players is what we all believe is going to be the future of the back four. But boy, they were terrible yesterday.
Yeah, I can see Martinez in particular getting frustrated with the way United are playing at the moment. He had that awful tackle against Crystal Palace, and yesterday he just went through somebody and got a yellow. And yeah, he's not at himself. I think mentally, the way the team is playing and the poor results are starting to affect him as well. Yeah, for someone who's normally so reliable, he's gone off the boil a wee bit. So psychologically, I think that our current situation is starting to affect him, and yeah, it's absolutely terrible. Um, it's just as I said, it's not really much of a surprise. But it always takes it for it to get worse before the board take any action. Um, like all the previous managers were all given a stay of execution before they were actually dismissed, and Ten Hag has got that in spades. I mean, he must be like a cat with nine lives. Um, but yeah, you mentioned the 600 million that he spent, and he said signed 13 permanent players, and somebody was discussing with me on social media, making the point that these players have let down several managers. How can they stay on longer than yet another manager? And I say, but hold on a second. He signed 13 of his own players. 8 players who started yesterday were not involved under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That's 6 of his signings and Menu and Garnacho who weren't involved under Ole. And so only 3 players yesterday were there under Solskjaer, which is Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, and Diogo Dalot. So how can you say that these are the same players throwing the manager under the bus? These are his signings. This is his team, and we're terrible. I actually think overall, like, yes, there's still mediocre players in the squad, in my opinion, at this level. We still need at least 4 in and 4 out at the very least. We definitely need a left back, and we need a striker who's going to score goals. We need another midfielder, in my opinion. But there is the basis there of a decent squad, and he's not getting a tune out of them. I think their potential is much greater than what they're showing at the moment, and I think that's down to him.
Yeah, well, we have to believe that's the case. But I mean, remember that when Hoyland was signed as centre forward, he was an injured player. Now that should never happen. Look at the extraordinary amount of money was paid for him, and he didn't play for 6 or 8 weeks when we were crying out for a goal scorer. This guy Xerxes is a good link player, but he doesn't look to me to have any long term prospect of fulfilling a striking role in the front line. So it's Ten Hag's decision, and he's making poor decisions left, right, and centre right through the team. And we have got to believe that those players have the potential to improve if they're coached properly. They're certainly not been coached properly under the current management structure.
No, and it's spiraling. I don't see him turning around now. I think he's past the point of no return. Um, yeah, I don't believe the players actually believe in his methods, and they don't appear to be listening to him anymore. Um, and I can see us losing both these games against Porto and Villa. These are very, very hard away games. I mean, the only away games that would be harder is if you were going away to Liverpool, Arsenal, or Manchester City. But outside of that, these are in the next bracket of tough away games. and Villa Park will be a tough place to go. They'll really fancy that. They'll be licking their lips at playing United at home at the moment, and Porto away was always a difficult game, even under Alex Ferguson. So they'll fancy the chances of winning that too. So Ten Hag has got two very difficult away games to save his job, and it's not going to happen. But see, once you've reached the point of that you've been judged on a game by game basis, and you've got two games to save your job, you're done anyway, aren't you? You're
Oh,
finished.
definitely done. But you talked earlier, Kyle, about players walking through the middle of the park. What what what's the midfield going to be if Menu's now injured and he went off injured and Bruno's suspended? Are Ericsson and Casemiro going to be good enough to stop young, quick players, positive teams running through that? Sure, it'll be the back four being a hiding to nothing. There could be really bad defeats in both games this week.
Yeah, and I have to admit and say that Ugarte is struggling with the pace of the Premier League so far, isn't he? It's
Oh, he is. He is. He is. He's trying, but he's not anywhere near fit enough to be in the game. He should have taken the Dutch defender down in that second minute of the game, and he just didn't get close enough to do it. Or he has to learn that you have to take at some stage take a card for the team and take him out. That was so embarrassing. I never saw anything like it.
yeah, and Madison was getting him the run around as well. That wasn't a duel that he won. So it was a real baptism of fire for him. But yeah, Mickey van der Ven. That's another frustration of mine. He's an excellent Dutch centre back, and he's obviously got lots of football in him as well for a defender. And Ten Hag, he was not on Ten Hag's radar. And I've mentioned it on this show a few times that players that were at Ajax under Erik Ten Hag who went to other clubs are flourishing. Yet the players that he has brought from Dutch football to United, most of them are not doing well. Why is that?
Obviously, he's just not clicking with the players. I mean, he knows them and he knows what they can do, but it's just not happening. And I think I mentioned yesterday, as I have done in previous games against Spurs, James Maddison was available for less money than Mason Mount, and the manager went for Mason Mount. And I've always thought that's a mistake. And every time we play Spurs, Maddison dictates the whole game. He's a very, very good player. And it's what I said earlier, the judgment of the manager in signing players is not good, Kyle. And that's another example of it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Madison would have been a better option than Mason Mount, but I really want Mason Mount to be a success, but it's been a real stop-start career with these injuries. And yesterday he came on at half time. Uh, yeah, he came on wasn't when Manu got injured, I think, just before half time, and then he went off after 85 minutes because he had a gash on the back of his head. He says that he's okay. So imagine he's going to play against Porto if he starts with a bandage around his head. But um, it's not been great from him so far, to be honest. And yeah, I agree. Madison would have been a much better option, but that that ship is sealed, I'm afraid. Uh, and we just got to hope that Mount under a new coach can turn it around. Because he certainly tries. He presses, he chases, he runs, and you can't say that about every player at United. Which should be you know the bare minimum from any player. But that's not what we're seeing from certain individuals. Um, Yeah, absolutely shocking day all round. And it's one of those. I seen somebody when they're giving their analysis on their show. They start off by saying I'm speechless, and I can understand that. But so we shall get into the player ratings. So I think the first two here will get the high scores. That's how poor it was. So Andre Onana, did concede three goals, but it could have been six or seven if it wasn't for him, Nigel. So what would you give him?
I'd give him a 7. I'd give him the best mark of the whole lot. It made 4 or 5 saves that kept the score down. If he hadn't have done that, it would have been absolutely wipeout time and total embarrassment.
And Mazrahi?
Maserati, I'd give a 6. He's the best of the back four yesterday by a long shot. Tried, never give up. Wasn't very well protected by people playing ahead of him. He had to do twice the work he should have had to do. And that's something that the coach just doesn't get.
And Matthijs de Ligt.
I'd give him a 3. Very poor from him.
Yeah, very disappointing. And Martinez.
Another 3.
This is going to be an interesting one. Diego Dallo.
I'll give him a 1 because he turned up.
Very generous one there.
Yeah.
Um, Kobe Menu only played the first half, really.
Yeah, give him 6. He was trying to do an awful lot because people around him were doing nothing, so he couldn't really shine, and then he went off. So I'll give him a 6. Yeah,
Manuel Ugarte.
I give him a 4. Very, very poor. Really struggled at that level.
Bruno Fernandes.
He's Dallo. He's another one. Just about gets a 1. Captain should have taken more responsibility. He's getting more and more petulant. He gets stuck into referees. Doesn't seem to have a role there. I don't know how he's been played by Ten Hag because he wanders and doesn't take a man. It's very poor.
Yeah, so what I've noticed is that Xerxes comes very deep, and then that means that he's in Bruno Fernandes' position on the pitch, and then Bruno decides to go left or go right, and he's everywhere, and it's not really working, is it? And there's nobody occupying the centre forward position. I thought that if Xerxes is going to come deep, then Bruno will go and play as like a shadow striker, but that hasn't happened. They're both playing deep, and there's nobody in there. It's any wonder that we don't score any goals.
Yeah, so they're not coached properly. They're just doing what they want to do. But Xerxes, as you say, he's getting deeper and deeper. He's missed a few, and the confidence is shot, and he looks as if when he gets a chance, he's not going to score. And we have nobody there that looks as if they're going to score. That's why we're in the minus goal difference. It's awful.
Yeah, one goal at home all season so far. It's just absolutely pitiful. Um, Xerxes himself, then, what does he get?
Well, I'd give him a 4 because he did an awful lot of work. Didn't always work out for him, but he's not playing where he wants to play. I should be further up the pitch than that.
And Menu created a chance for him in the first half, which again he didn't take. He's just he's not ruthless in front of goal.
No, it was
He-
like a pass back. It really was like something you'd see in the pub league in Lurgan here.
Marcus Rashford.
I'll give him a 2. He's just getting worse. Uh, we talked about it yesterday. The 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 uh, the he hadn't the courage to put the foot in and tackle the guy, and his lack of involvement in the first goal. But he's running around there hiding the way Martial used to. Do you remember 5 or 6 times yesterday when Anana hit the ball deep and he stood literally and watched either centre half for Spurs stand, not even jump and head the ball. He's not even prepared to go up and jump to try to put the centre half off. He just lets him do what he wants. He has no commitment to the team at all that I can see.
Yeah, and that's a situation we need to revisit in the summer again. If he doesn't improve massively between now and the end of the season, we need to look at moving him on. I think because that would be 2 poor seasons in a row, and that's totally unacceptable. So Alejandro Garnacho.
I'd give him a 5. It wasn't particularly good. Didn't support the fullback. He had the wonderful shot that hit the post, but it, he's been affected by the bad play around him and not getting in the space that he would do. There's lots and lots of ability. He's a great talent, but yesterday certainly wasn't his day.
No, but it's very difficult for the young man when nobody around him is playing well. There's a lot of pressure on him, to be the one who delivers for the team, and it's not really fair on him. Yeah, he always has an impact with the bench, but it's very unfair that some people say that he never plays well when he starts because that simply isn't true. I mean, he started with 39 games in a row last season. That wouldn't have happened if he wasn't playing well as a young player. So I don't accept that at all. Sure, he scored the overhead kick, didn't he, when he started? It was at the very start of the game against Everton. He scored two against Villa at Old Trafford when he started. So I don't get this nonsense that people say that he's only good when he comes on when defenders' legs are tired. It's just crap, to be honest. Yeah, so I still have great faith in him that he's going to be a great player for the club. So just disappointing day, obviously. So Mason Mount played 40 minutes until he went off with a cut on the back of his head. So what would you give him?
I'd give him a 4. No better than that. At least, as you say, tries to press and tries to get involved. He doesn't hide.
And Casemiro,
About all 3. My goodness me! It was him that the final goal. It was him that let the player flick the ball on for Solanke at the back. He should have taken that, and he's very, very good in the air. He's very, very good in the ground too. But I don't know whether he just lost interest at that stage. But that man shouldn't have been allowed to hit the ball over across the box like that.
and Ericsson, Ahmad, and Hoyland come on very late, so it's difficult to give them a rating. They played so few minutes, and the game was over by then. So what about the man who all the attention is on at the moment? What does he get? Erik Ten Hag.
I'd give him a 2, and he's lucky to get 2. He just he's the job is far too big for him. It's proven every week by the communications when he stands on that line and writes on his wee piece of paper and it's soaking wet and he sticks it in his pocket. He just doesn't seem to know what to do when things are going wrong. He doesn't have a plan B. Most fans will say he doesn't have a plan A. So he's lucky to get 2, Kai.
Yeah, he's drowning out there. Um, I would feel sorry for him only for the fact that he's on a massive amount of money, and apparently, what's left of his current contract that takes him up to the summer of 2026. If he was to see out that contract, he would earn a further 17.5 million. So I'm guessing that is what he'll be paid if he is sacked next week, which is eye-watering, really. That so undeserving, really. Given that he's made millions already, for him to feel and then get a further 17 million is just absolutely ridiculous. Um, but I feel that the sacking is only around the corner. They're just delaying the inevitable now, because I think they're just giving themselves time now to think of what to do. Are we going to give Rude the job on an interim basis, or are we going to bring in somebody that's currently available, or are we going to buy somebody out of the contract elsewhere? Um, and the Daily Mirror said this morning that Simone Inzaghi of Inter Milan is under consideration. And I like him a lot because he's won 9 major trophies in Italian football. Obviously, got Inter Milan to the Champions League final in last year, where they lost narrowly to Man City. They weren't played off the pitch by any means by Guardiola's team. Um, and I think he's an astute coach who could do a good job if he moves abroad. So we'll be happy for United to take a risk on someone like him. But another name, there's been lots of names mentioned, obviously, but another name that's been mentioned is the Aston Villa manager, Unai Emery. And some people will laugh at this and say, why would he leave a team like Villa to come to United? Because they are streets ahead of us at the moment. They're in the Champions League and we're not. But I mean, realistically, he's only going to finish fourth with Aston Villa and qualify for the Champions League. If United got everything right, United had potential to win the Champions League and win the Premier League, and he might look at it that way. So if you were to choose a manager, Nigel, next week, who would it be?
I think the decision's already been made. They're delaying sacking the current coach, but I think when Van Nistelrooy was approached pre-season, he had an alternative to become a manager at Burnley, I believe, and I think that they won't change it permanently mid-season. The vibes I'm getting from Ineos, I think that Ruud Van Nistelrooy will be promoted in a temporary capacity and asked to prove himself, and then it'll be reviewed in June 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility. Everyone in the United fan base has believed that as soon as Rude was made assistant manager, that he was going to be Plan B if things didn't go well. But Ennis probably didn't anticipate it would go this badly this soon. They probably thought they might have to give Van Nistelrooy from maybe Christmas onwards, but it's Van Nistelrooy is going to get the majority of a season now, the way things are going. Um, and maybe they realised that the manager they really want long term is not going to be available until the end of the season. And they might have a list of managers who are currently in jobs, and it'd be very, very difficult and costly to get them out of their contracts in October. So maybe Van Nistelrooy was always going to be the plan B. And given that we signed so many Dutch-based players again, it made sense then to have a Dutch assistant manager if you have to dismiss Ten Hag. So that makes sense. But yeah, it looks like Ruud is going to get a chance to prove himself. But we've been here before with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He had a decent interim spell. I think in fact he won 14 of his 19 matches as interim manager, and then he got the job, and things went downhill. And soon after that, but and then in the next couple of seasons, it was a real roller coaster ride. Didn't win anything, lost the final. There were some bad spells, some good spells, and then at the end it was atrocious, and he had to be dismissed. I don't think that was the right decision to make Ollie permanent manager. So if Ruud van Nistelrooy was to do really well in an interim basis, would you risk giving him the job permanently?
Well, it's hard to call that one because you really don't know. He hasn't had a terrible amount of previous managerial experience. Ali had effectively none. The similarities between the two players are interesting. Ollie scored 126 goals. Van Nistelrooy got 150. And what we're crying out for in this team more than anything else, excluding the left back, is goals. Can Ruud get this change implemented that people start getting more into attacking positions, more shots on target? I mean, our game to game shots on target ratio is just appalling. And uh, I just couldn't make a call on Van Nistelrooy this early without seeing the changes he makes, the impact he has on various players who are currently playing very badly. He could get them motivated and up a gear, and we could start winning games at home. Let's get the fans excited again, and the management change will do that. But it's more hope than certainty, Kyle. That's my point. We just couldn't. We could anticipate improvement, more goals, more home wins, more confidence flowing through the team under new management. But whether that's a long term thing with Ruud, I couldn't look in my crystal ball and say definitely. We'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, he hasn't had much experience. Just one season with PSV where he won the Dutch Cup, so it's not a great deal of experience. But yeah, I agree with you about the goal scoring situation. Just for Xerxes, I don't dislike the player, and he does have good attributes. But unfortunately, those attributes are in the middle of the pitch and not in the penalty box.
Absolutely.
And for me, I would have spent the money on a top striker who's going to guarantee you 20 league goals. And this is why I've been banging on about Victor Osimhen. There's an opportunity there. He'd fallen out with Napoli, was excluded from their project under Antonio Conte, who just arrived this summer, and they didn't agree a deal with Chelsea or PSG or anyone else, and he ended up being loaned out to Galatasaray uh, for a season. We're very lucky to have a player of that quality, and he scored 2 goals again at the weekend for Galatasaray. That should have been the type of striker that we should have got. Even if we got him on loan with a view to buying him, that would have been a great piece of business. And he was there. He's only 25, and he's a goal scoring machine. And that's a trick that we've missed, but it's something that we could look at again in the summer, definitely, because huge fan of that player. Not just his goal scoring ability, but from a technical point of view, he's wonderful and brilliant to watch, and just has that real confidence and arrogance about him too. So I would love to see him at the club.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I do think that if Ruud comes in, that young Waitley, who scored a hat trick there in a recent game, looked very impressive to me. That under Ruud, he will be a regular on the bench and will get game time. I can't see if Ten Hag was to stay, how he would get any game time. He's just he wants to get everybody in that he was connected with or that he bought. And young Wheatley's way down the pecking order as far as I can see. But Rude is the type we want to keep the academy guys coming through, and that guy has the potential. Maybe in a Europa League game and a League Cup game, that sort of game. Let's have a good look at him because Ten Hag won't play him.
Yeah, Wheatley and Toby Collier and Harry Armas are just playing for the under 21s now, aren't they? They're not getting into the match day squad recently for the first time, unfortunately, because of the senior players returning from injury. But yeah, I'd love to see Wheatley play 10 games for United before we make a judgment call. See him start a few games and see what he can do. Hi Amos, I'm very excited about as well, and Toby Collier in midfield. But see, with the manager being under so much intense pressure, then he's going to start playing more senior players and less youngsters. You probably, for the remainder of his time in charge, was might not be very long. I don't think you'll see youngsters getting a chance because isn't that always the way when a manager's under pressure? He doesn't play. He doesn't take the risk of playing young players anymore, does he not?
No, definitely not. But young Toby definitely has to go to Portugal on Thursday night because with our lack of players there,
Mm.
they've no option. Whether he starts is another thing, but he certainly should be involved. I mean, the Casemiro and Ericsson can't play 90 minutes nowadays away from home, and you've got the young fella to come on the second half. But will he do that or leave it the 79th, 80th minute as he always does? And nobody can understand his rationale behind changes, team selections. That's why it's so baffling that he's still there.
I know. And Ineos themselves have been bringing in young players for the academy, including 16-year-old Obi Martin, the young Danish striker, who scored a hatful of goals for Arsenal's youth team. And it was a real coup for United to bring him to Old Trafford. And there's been a couple of other youngsters that Ineos have brought in behind the scenes. So hopefully we'll see the fruits of that labour in the coming years. But it certainly won't be happening under Ten Hag. It'll be
No,
the
no. But it's exciting news that they're being proactive and seeing the future of the club in young players, if they're good enough, been given an opportunity. And long may that carry on.
Okay, we shall leave it there. I would say next time you're on, Nigel, it'll be a different man in the dugout at Old Trafford, and probably Ruud van Nistelrooy, but we shall see. So it's been a pleasure having you on as always.
Thanks very much. Enjoyed it, Kyle.
If everyone could please like the video, subscribe to the podcast, and get more of your comments in, and I will apply to as many of those as possible. And I will be back after the FC Poro game. I'll see you all later.